Woo, we might as well start this party a little early because, well, a couple minutes early anyway. First off, there's already some people in, already ready to watch and just waiting to get in here, which is cool. But we'll start it early because, holy shit, I'm being joined. I am not alone. This is the first time for any monthly live Hangout Q&A for Sovryn Tech for patrons only. This is the first time I actually have a guest on, to like a full-on guest host with me. And of course, she is one of the co-hosts of Sovryn Tech, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, the boss, who is here.
Hi. I'm so excited. I knew Brian was doing the show today, and I asked if I could be a special guest, and he said yes.
Yeah.
But he didn't announce it because he wanted to surprise you.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen on a live show, right? And that's the way I kind of like it.
Yeah, that's right.
If there's an audio problem, let me know. Someone just said you sound like Brian Soviet. Hi, Stephanie. Sometimes my voice actually. No, I sound like Brian Soviet. But if there's like a stutter, because I'm actually using the H6 and I couldn't exactly test it with Hangouts beforehand. I mean, it sounded okay, but I'm not 100% sure. So let me know in the YouTube chat if any of you are running into any issues with that. But yeah, the voice of Brian Soviet, just real quick. That's me. I can do that voice. It sounds a little deeper. Yeah. Well, I don't know. As long as it's not like echoing or stuttering or anything, that's fine. But that is, a voice that often I will talk in when when I'm relaxed, and I'm feeling pretty relaxed because we're on location. If you're wondering why we're on the H6. But anyway, yeah, Stephanie, it's great to have you on for this, and can't wait to get into get some of the questions and everything.
Yeah, this underground bunker is a really awesome vacation spot. Yeah. Nobody bothers us here. We don't get any messages,
Yeah, I mean, so I don't have any like real preloaded questions. I pull up some questions that people have asked. One thing that's been happening a lot is getting questions for the best. And of course, the best is the Sovryn Tech listener created acronym for Brian, Ellen, and Stephanie. And we're getting a lot of these now, like where we might be able to do like entire shows of just listener questions as far as that goes.
Oh, wow.
So I might end up pulling some of those up. Even though we're not being joined by the E in the best, that being Ellen, she's not here for this one. Maybe she can be on a future one or something. Maybe we can schedule it to where that's possible. But anyway, we might pull those up if we don't get more questions in. But it looks like a lot of people are starting to log in and beyond. So we went, actually, speaking of the best, we went and saw, and the people that listened to episode 279 of Sovryn Tech this week, they heard my 1 hour long review of Solo: A Star Wars Story, and we all went and saw it. And you said, and I quoted you on the show, you said that it was the best of the new Star Wars movies so far. That's what you thought.
I did, yeah, and I'll stick to that.
Yeah.
And it was my personal favorite anwi
Yeah, so far.
Which wasn't a very high bar, to be honest, because I didn't really like the other ones very much.
Right.
But yeah, this one I thought was the best of the recent Star Wars movies. And reasons why? Do you want me to get into why?
Sure. Just real quick, though, I will say there's no video, and that's part of being on location, just in case anyone's wondering about it.
Yeah, we don't have very good internet in this underground bunker.
Yeah. So we're skipping on the video, but as long as the audio is good,
we're actually on Mars.
That's
broadcasting
what matters.
From Mars right now.
That's right. I'm still worried the audio is like screwing up, but if it well, I'll make it sound good when we release the podcast version of it. Mm-hmm. So actually, Rob from the Star Wars update that I do on Patreon is actually in the YouTube chat right now. He says he's seeing the movie tomorrow, so we're gonna steer clear of spoiler alerts. So
okay.
But if you could explain without spoiling, what you liked about this movie.
Okay,
I know you like Chewbacca.
So,
you and Ellen both really like Chewbacca.
Yes, I love Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. But so can we just quickly define what a spoiler is? Like, I'm not allowed to reveal the ending of the movie or any significant plot points, right? But can I reveal like the level of graphicness? Can I tell some jokes that were in the movie? Like, can I spoil those kinds of things?
I don't know.
Is that a spoiler?
This is tough because there's nothing in this movie, in my opinion, that's actually a spoiler. Like we knew all of this. We never saw it happen, but like everything that really happened in this movie, more or less, we already knew, and we knew what happened kind of when it happened.
Did you know it because of the other Star Wars movies,
Yeah.
or did you know it because you read all the books?
A little of both. Okay. A little of both. I mean, like, that Han Solo didn't originally own the Millennium Falcon, that originally Lando did, and that he won it from Lando in the Sabacc game. Like, these things are known. There's a surprise in there that's a surprise, but it's not something that isn't already known, and I don't know where to touch on that. But yeah, why don't you go? You could tell the jokes. I think that's safe. I think we'll be good with that.
Okay, because that's the central point of why I like this movie better.
Sure.
So first of all, it had less of the feel of a Disney movie than the other ones, which I liked. There were people making out. There were several kisses in the movie, and they weren't like chaste kisses like the other movies.
I didn't bring this up on my review, but you raise a great point. This was a sexually charged, shall I say, a sexually charged
for a Disney movie,
for a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
I mean, Star Wars more importantly, because this is a point I've brought up many times, is that I think Star Trek is objectively better than Star Wars, partly because Star Trek is willing to get sexy. They'll let Kirk have a threesome or a foursome, as to where I didn't think I'd ever end up seeing anything like that in Star Wars. Now, granted, there's some suggestiveness with a female droid. We'll just put it that way in this movie. Now, I mean, even Star Trek did that in 1987, with the Next Generation episode, The Naked Now. So it's not like Star Wars is doing anything really trailblazing as far as that goes. But it's it's one of the few times where that's ever been hinted at. But anyway, I'm sorry, please continue. I know I just took a ton of.
Oh no, that's fine. We can totally go on tangents. Maybe you can tell me whether you agree with my analysis or not, Brian.
Sure.
But yeah, that was right off the bat, you got the feeling that this isn't your typical chaste Disney movie made for kids.
Right.
And that set the tone for me in order for me to like it more. There was a point where somebody said like, "Oh shit," or something. So there was like a little bit of language in there. Yep. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good." The actor that played Han Solo was really good.
Alden Ehrenreich. Yeah. I had no problem thinking he was Han Solo, and that's all that he needed to do. Like that's the job that had to get done. And he did it.
Yep. That was good. It didn't have like a lot of the cartoonish, like bureaucrat characters, like The Last Jedi, like they could have, because Han Solo did go into the Navy for a little bit, and he was dealing with government agents, but it didn't have like, that admiral in The Last Jedi that was just like, that like ruined the movie for me because he was so annoying, like in cartoon.
Oh, you mean General Hux?
Yeah, General Hux.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, some people liked that joke. Some people liked the comedic factor of him. Others didn't. But anyway,
I didn't like
it.
Yeah,
continue.
Well, this movie, the Solo movie, didn't have any of those characters that like really took me out of the experience.
Right.
And just overall, it didn't feel like a kids movie. So I liked that. The other things that I liked were. I like Chewbacca, of course.
Yep.
There's a scene where Chewie like meets Han Solo, and they're like dragging each other through the mud. And
now you're spoiling.
No, but I had to do that because it ends up in a scene where they take a shower together.
Oh, that was funny.
Yeah,
yes.
And it's really funny.
All right, you definitely spoiled there, but that was funny.
Okay. So Han Solo and Chewie are in the shower together, and all I could think about was that infamous video from Stefan Molyneux from 2013 or so, where he was analyzing Star Wars, and he said Han Solo represents masturbation because it's like hand solo alone, and Chewbacca represents your mother's hairy vagina. Like especially when you're looking up at it in the shower.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know why he said that. Like maybe he had that experience or something, but it was so weird and so over the top. And then like to have them actually end up together in the shower, it was so funny because it reminded me of
Well, like every one of his film analyses have been, I think, outlandish. To put it simply. And
I haven't listened to that many of them. I mean, after 2014, I guess I sort of stopped listening to Freedom Main Radio, but that was one of the most memorable ones that I've ever heard, and it stands out, and I still remember it and chuckle about it to this day.
Sure.
And just the fact that they had that scene with Chewie and Han Solo was like, it tickled me. It tickled me.
It was funny. It was that part was laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
So Rob says, I hate Hux too, so you're not alone on that
cool.
one.
Cheers. Cheers, Rob.
Yeah, then we got Jacob says, seems like a lot of people liked Solo better than I did. It was fine, but I left feeling very meh. So Jacob wasn't so impressed.
Yeah,
Chris,
I mean, I wouldn't look, Jacob. I'm with you. I wouldn't say it was like one of my favorite movies or anything like that. I just said I liked it better than the other recent Star Wars. And that's not saying too much because I wasn't super impressed. I mean, now some things about it I didn't like. I didn't like it definitely, like, the plot felt very formulaic because
oh sure,
in every Star Wars movie, they have this formulaic plot where it starts out with a chase or an action scene. Then, the major mission of the plot sort of gets laid out and developed. And then there's an obligatory, like, casino or party or bar scene that's filled with aliens that you don't know where they came from or why they look the way they do. They just have, like, weird dicks hanging off their face and things like that, and they just look as weird as possible. And you're like, where did all these aliens come from? Why do they look like that? And it confuses me so much because in Star Trek, all the aliens, and like there's only a few types, and
well,
you know
but
where they
even
come
in
from.
Star Trek, they're usually forehead of the week. I mean, it's
Forehead
not
of the week, yeah, but it's
yeah.
like it's a little bit more sensical than Star Wars is, a lot more sensical, and you get a little bit more background on each one. So I mean, I don't know. I just those party scenes with all the different aliens in Star Wars seems to be like it seems to be like a thing about Star Wars that they have to get that in.
Well,
And
there's a feel that Star Wars needs to deliver, I
mhm,
think, I mean, because you don't want it to be, because that's what happened with The Last Jedi,
mhm.
is I think for a lot of people, it was a little too, no pun intended, it was a little too alien. Like it didn't feel right. Like, okay, yeah, you want to do Star Wars different, fine, but there's certain things that create the universe of Star Wars, that kind of puts it together. I mean, you're not, our age difference isn't that dramatic.
Nope.
But like I think
You got
you're
about what 3 years on me?
three or four, something like that. I think you might be, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this disrespect, it's just the term that I'll use. I think you're a little spoiled on like what aliens can look like, because I mean, no one had ever seen anything like that before with Star Wars, and you kind of have to keep it that way. And I mean, it has a reputation of being what's called a creature feature, which used to be a term used back in like the 60s and 70s and even before that. So yeah, I get your point that it seems kind of pointless, but it's meant to look. Like the idea is for them to just look weird, like that. That is kind of the concept, is that you're supposed to see things that you hadn't seen before. Now, but to comment on that, one of the things I did like about this film is there were alien species from the original from the original trilogy in this movie. And with a lot of the new Star Wars, is they just keep creating all these new creatures, and it's like, no, could I see Reese again? Could I see Muftak or something like that, in one of your films?
Muftak.
And well, if you saw him, you'd know I got that name. But or an Ithorian or something. I mean, literally, it's a giant fuzzball. Like that's what they call Muftak.
Oh,
But
kind of like the microphone that we're using.
yeah, actually, Muftak looks a lot like that. So those sorts of things. Yeah, I was pleased that the movie paid a lot of its attention and homage to which has been a problem with some of the new Star Wars. And here's a comment quick for someone. This is from Chris. For someone who hates Star Wars so much, I agree with you much. Meaning, you hate Star Wars. To well in The Last Jedi. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I get it. I understand the limit of why Hux was annoying, but I mean, it was a little like the humor wasn't very Star Wars style humor, which humor in Solo I thought was very Star Wars. But anyway, any other comments on this? And folks, if you want to get in questions, it has nothing to do with Star Wars. If you want to specific to Stephanie or whatever, that's fine. Get them in, make it happen.
Oh yeah, please.
You don't want to talk about Star Wars for an hour.
For Rob and Brian's show.
Yeah, but what else? Did you have anything else to say about it?
I guess I'm still thinking about maybe I need to rewatch episode 4 in light of having...
I can't do that.
No,
I hate that movie, but go ahead.
Okay.
No, I don't hate episode 4, but I just think it's the worst of the bunch. But go ahead.
Well, okay, so let me finish what I thought. I was like, really the misogyny of the character, and is this like trying to almost like set it up or make an excuse for him, because he had this, well, I don't know how to say this without spoiling it, but you could see why young Han Solo by a woman.
Sure. I think people knew that he's, we'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was an attempt to gain it or put it in context a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems I had with this film is it seems like, and I get it. Look, the Empire's in charge, and so everything's supposed to be shitty. That's why you have a rebellion, right? Um, I don't know. I don't agree with that kind of presentation of the Star Wars universe. And like, I had no sense that Corellian the first few minutes of the film. Corellia, I never thought that it was some kind of like dump planet. I expanded universe and everything. I'm a little annoyed that every planet just seems to be a shithole in the Star Wars universe. Like that's getting awfully tiresome for them to constantly do that. As to where I think there should be, literal paradise planets that we should be seeing a lot more of. You never get to see.
Mic is not muted because I heard someone grunting.
You heard a grunt? Oh, someone did enter. Okay. You heard that, not me. Oh, so okay. Rob's in. So we'll get to Rob in just a second. Right on. So
hi, Rob.
Hi, I didn't know you could hear me.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. Anyway, we'll get to you in just a second, Rob. And I want to read a couple comments. And then we'll get on you. Entered in the YouTube chat. Space fantasy and science doesn't always make sense. Yep. I mean, I get that point. Then Jacob said, I thought Solo was better than the worst episodes of Rebels, but not as good as the best episodes. Yeah, I would agree with that too, because the best episodes of Rebels, of course, you got Dave Filoni running that stuff. And if anybody knows Star Wars, I mean, it's Dave Filoni. He's the heir to the Empire, as it were. And I know Rob would agree with that too.
Yep.
But yeah, right on. So,
Brian, did you talk about on your review like how few people were there? I guess.
I can get into that, Rob. Before I have you on, yeah, I'll talk about this quick because I don't know where else it would fit to really talk about it. Granted, we all saw it in New Hampshire, and I pre-ordered my tickets. I was up to like 2 a.m. ordering, making sure that all three of us had tickets and everything. And like I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because, well, there's actually a really long conversation I could have about this that I had with you, Stephanie, about Star Wars. But I was disappointed that, I mean, there was like a guy there that had a Rebel Alliance helmet, and everything. And that was cool. But there wasn't, I mean, like we weren't seeing the first show. The first show was at 7:30. We saw the 8 o'clock. Okay. And maybe everybody was just at the 7:30 show, but like the theater was fucking empty on I mean, it's a Star Wars movie coming out. I don't know. I haven't looked for the numbers yet to see what the movie has done as far as box office so far. But yeah, I don't know. That was that there weren't more people there. But this happened to well, no, because Last Jedi was packed, Force Awakens was packed, Rogue One was packed. All those movies were packed, and this was a serious theater that we went to. I mean, like this is like an IMAX style theater, and there was almost nobody there. I don't know what to make of that. It sucks when you go to something and like you don't get to have that full on fan experience, but where everybody's there and going woo, and getting all excited about it and everything. But I mean, did you have any thoughts on that, Stephanie? Or
I just think that what I prophesized is coming true.
What's that?
I prophesized that basically when they release a new Star Wars, like at least once a year,
it'll be less special.
It's going to be less special. And
Sure.
Also when the movies aren't very good or like aren't as good as it's never going to be as good as that first hit of Heroine or whatever, right? Like it's never going to live up to the hype and the nostalgia. And so people are going to see them and be really excited and then be disappointed. And then they're going to it's going to wear off where they're not going to be excited about new Star Wars anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, people have talked about that, and certainly Last Jedi being such a divisive film, I don't think helped matters.
No,
there's a lot of people who just said, "Okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with new Star Wars."
Yeah, for sure,
and all of that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. At some point, I'll talk about kind of my feel. Like I had like kind of an epiphany as far as Star Wars goes. I talked to you about it. But anyway,
don't you want to tell the listeners?
No. Well, we'll get to Rob here, and we'll start talking about it. But regardless, it was, even though there weren't a lot of people there, it was an awesome time. The people that I wanted to be there were there, and you and Ellen had like the best commentary during the film. I wish I could have recorded it.
We were giggling to each other about different things.
You two were hilarious. That was brilliant. I love it. Anyway, so Rob. All right, man. What do you got?
Hey guys. One, I'm just here to derail this Star Wars conversation because you're taking up content from our show, man.
That's right.
I'm kidding,
sorry, Rob.
No, it's okay,
man.
I'm totally joking. But in not all seriousness, I'm here to demand the Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction.
What is this?
So Brian, you don't know about this because you aren't on Facebook, but Rob posted in your abandoned Facebook group.
Actually, it was somebody else that posted the meme.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was someone else that posted. So there's been this Myers-Briggs meme going around that says all the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types, and then like a little summary, and then like what the quote best career choices would be for each one. But it's totally like a joke. Like for INTJ, which is both of our Myers-Briggs type.
Yes.
Brian and I are both INTJs.
Yes.
It said like INTJ, the evil mastermind. And then underneath it said like best careers. Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction writer, penguin salesman, evil mastermind or evil genius or something. I forget the other one, but pretty funny.
Well, I mean, two of those certainly,
yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah, that fit my bill. I mean, I don't think I've ever written Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction, but I take Sonic very seriously. And
oh man,
I feel like that's how people become furries.
Whoa. Well, I'm not going to talk about any onesies or anything, but anyway, in fact, there's an irony there thinking of penguins, but anyway.
Brian has a penguin onesie.
Well, hey, I wasn't going to say it.
That was a little too inside baseball.
Wow.
You got to give your listeners something, man. You got to explain.
Well,
things.
We won't talk about the other onesies. So, all right. So, what do you got with that, Rob?
Oh no, I was joking around with you guys. I just thought that was really funny because my comment response to that was to ask Stephanie if you were an INTJ because I couldn't remember. And I said, because, writing Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction sounds like something he might have actually done at one point.
I would have. I certainly write I like to think it's a little more than fan fiction, but I do write fan fiction on a regular basis right now.
Right. So, Rob, are you into Myers-Briggs? Do you know a lot about it?
I know a little bit. I mean, I was into it a couple of years ago, and then just as time goes on, I've kind of just taken it less seriously. It's kind of like a step above horoscopes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people say, and that's what I used to think too. But recently, I guess in the last year or so, somebody took the time to like send me some more detailed articles about it that I found really helpful, and I found that I could get some stuff out of it. And we've already talked about it on the show, but the main thing is that I joined this group for INTJ women, and it's amazing. Like there's a lot of women that are like me, which is something I've never experienced before. I've always just felt like an alien in school.
They may be like similar in certain ways, but no one is like you. I mean,
thank you.
That's totally
they're
different.
not the goddess, but
no,
but like just people whose kind of like the machination works similar to me, and like they're constantly posting memes and stuff that are like funny because like I get it, and also it's just given me permission to be a bitch sometimes, which I really need, and it's been awesome. I really like it.
That's funny because I actually kind of had the opposite experience because I joined an INTP group, and there's actually two of them, and one of them is INTPs. I guess they're known for procrastination, and I've certainly fallen into that category. But so far as like the stuff they were posting and saying, like the memes they were sharing, I was just like, man, these are not my people at all.
Really? Oh my gosh. What were some of the memes? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember anything specific because I haven't been in either of the groups for like almost a year now. So it's been quite a while since I've looked at that. It was with my old Facebook profile, but
don't you know that INTPs are like loners and like curmudgeonly loners, and so of course that would be an INTP thing to react.
Right, yeah. But I mean, there was some stuff they were posting that was just really awful crap, and like they were just, and some of the people were just really mean and snippy with each other. I mean, I know that's a thing, but it was not a very, positive and welcoming environment.
Yeah, I totally see that. There's another INTJ group that I joined, and I should have like been tipped off because it was called like INTJ females or something. And like whenever people refer to women as females, it's always a little bit like, okay, that's
like Ferengi.
It's not. Yes, exactly.
The
like
females.
like Ferengi,
yes.
like those females, like it's an animal or something.
Right.
It's not like a person. So that should have been my first tip off, but that group was definitely weird, and I ended up leaving it because it was all just people like wanting to get into political debates essentially about like basically just people trolling, and it wasn't moderated very well. But the INTJ sorority is so much better. It's awesome, but the INTJ females group sucked. So I totally know what you're saying. It doesn't mean that there is no such thing as a ready-made community that's good people.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you found a community that you could relate to other people and stuff like that. I mean, that I could see how that would be really helpful, but I just haven't found it yet for my, and I don't know, maybe I'm not actually INTP, but every test I've taken says that I am. So
right
now, apparently on that meme, it also said one of the jobs for INTJ was cult leader. So I guess I'm 3 for 4.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I don't know if she saw it, but I responded to that too, and I said, most goddesses have a cult of their own.
Yeah.
I did see that. Yes.
I've been trying for a long time to get Stephanie to start a cult. I mean, because like people will follow this woman, to hell and back, and which is fine with me. Right. Yeah. I mean, I just going to hell and back. I'd just be going home, I mean, that's no problem for me, but like,
no, I really do need to get on that, but it needs to be like a yoni cult. Like I need to like recruit fellow goddesses.
We've talked about this. You start a yoga cult.
Yeah.
Okay. You start a yoga cult and you get more gals and, into it and everything. I mean, and you'll take over the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're the one, I used to years ago when I was a little more, when I was a little more amenable to the terms like say, libertarian or ANCAP even, or things like that. Like, I mean, I would literally say that Stephanie is the new Ayn Rand. Like you are at that level. I'd still say that because I don't have as much distaste for Ayn Rand as some others do, even though there's things where she's wildly off base. But I'm telling you, here's another, you need to start a cult. You need to make this happen. Rob's ready to, Rob's a co-host. He signed the document that said, that
she's the boss. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. That she's the boss. Absolutely. She's the center of the universe. Yep. He knows the deal.
I have the documents.
But I mean, even more seriously, like, female-oriented cults throughout history have always been of a different character than what we typify as a cult today, where, most people associate that with some sort of mind control or something. But, you think of like the cult of Isis in Egyptian, society. And, that didn't, resemble anything what we'd call a cult today.
Right. Yeah, actually. And even when it was more towards female goddesses, very different makeup than what people generally think of as far as religions and things like this. That's a great point to bring up, Rob. But boy, I mean, we could get into a whole matriarchal conversation around that sort of thing.
I love that you brought up this idea, Rob. I'm gonna seriously think about this.
Chris in the chat says I'll join.
Nice. So all right, we got a member.
We already got people signing up. Yeah. So anyway, well, yeah, I mean that's true. They are of a different character. Boy. Anyway, I don't even know where to go from that. But
I should make a Patreon. I've been
the cult of Stephanie.
Yeah, and I just call it the Goddess Cult of Stephanie Murphy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd buy that for $1.
I think. Yeah, right. I'd buy it for $1. I think it's an instantaneous winner. I'll probably lose patrons, but half the time I think I get funded because people just want to fund you, but or you being on or whatever. But anyway, so yeah. What else you got, Rob? Anything
No, I was just, wanting to chat with you guys, and it was nothing serious, but I
No,
just
sure
love
thing, man.
hanging out with the both of you.
Oh yeah, dude. No, we
that's
love
so
you, man.
cool. Yeah.
So if anybody does have like questions that they want to ask in the YouTube chat, feel free to, just ask them right in the YouTube chat. I'm looking at it right now, and you can get in your comments, and we'll get that on. So, but yeah, Rob, so you didn't see, we're not going to talk Star Wars again, but you didn't catch it yet? Didn't catch Solo?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I had finals this week, and so
right on.
both had 2 tests on Thursday and Friday, and I really didn't want to deal with the weekend crowd, so I'm going to go tomorrow. And I couldn't find good seats. No. I actually tried looking for a seat for an early showing this morning, and I couldn't find any good seats. So I don't know. Maybe if things are. I did hear that the ticket sales aren't so good for Solo right now, but maybe it's going to pick up with the holiday weekend. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of hilarious. Just real quick on that. I mean, it's hilarious. Like it's competing with. I mean, Disney's competing with itself, right?
Right.
Because it's competing with Deadpool 2. They own.
That's technically Fox, which they don't own yet.
Oh, okay. So that deal hasn't totally finalized.
Yeah, it hasn't been approved by whatever government organization approves these mergers.
Right, but in the end, that's going to be Disney's money. I mean, with Deadpool 2.
More than likely.
Yeah, and then you have Avengers: Infinity War. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like they're just taking money from themselves. So I don't think that. I don't know how much they should care. Like if Solo even does bad money, because
I mean we're gonna get into this on our talk, but I mean it's definitely kind of brought up a good point about Star Wars burnout, and I think that's definitely a thing.
Sure thing. So
well, that's interesting to get your expert opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan. I mean,
well, it's like sometimes when I shit on Star Wars. Okay, here's an interesting topic.
Sure.
Sometimes when I shit on Star Wars, I'm like, I feel a little bit of that guilt, like the kind of guilt that I think like Ben Shapiro should feel when he starts criticizing like problems in the Black community and he's like a white Jewish guy. Like, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I should maybe be staying in my lane or something.
Yeah, but I mean,
but when you're go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, but I view that as that's really different, because as one part, it's a culture, you were raised in those, part of your family, and the other thing is just it's entertainment. And I know there's, people say that Star Wars is its own culture, and that's true to a certain degree, but it's a culture of choice. So you choose to take part of it, and it's entertainment.
Sure, yeah.
So I mean, it's based on something totally subjective. Whereas being a member of a certain culture or something, that's something that is largely outside of your choice because you're born into it.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying Star Wars is a choice, not a not a
right
unchosen.
Yeah, it's not color.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's.
Yeah, but I think it's good to get the outside looking in. I mean, to get some perspective. I mean,
sure.
Like, and Rob and I have talked about this on our Star Wars updates, which this month's May's will be coming out on Thursday, as it stands right now. But I've said that. Like when you said you didn't like Star Wars, like that just shocked the hell out of me. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, who doesn't like Star Wars? And I had to kind of check myself. Well, wait, why do I like Star Wars? Because when your goddess from on high comes down and says, yeah, I don't like Star Wars, like I have to reassess things. You know what I mean? I have to check my faith. And but and then like Ellen doesn't like it either, and it's like, wait a minute, what the hell? Like what's going on here? I mean, we're talking about two people that I have the utmost respect for, and it's that's weird. But I like to hear those perspectives. I mean, like I think that that's important. To be able to like think, hey, wait a minute, is it actually was what Disney doing okay, or isn't it?
Right.
So we've got. I'm just going to read from the YouTube chat here. Jacob says, I don't know whether to hate or love Amazon. They picked up The Expanse, but they're providing facial recognition tech to governments. I'm getting some serious cognitive dissonance here. And then Jacob said also, he says, Star Wars isn't a choice. The Force chooses you. Yeah.
Right.
And so Russia,
I stand corrected.
Yeah, exactly. The Force is awakening.
I guess it skipped over me.
Yeah. Well, you know, the
Amazon.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got, Stephanie?
Yeah, I do think that's interesting. I mean, I think Amazon is just so pragmatic. Like whatever helps them take over the world, they are going to do it. They don't care about integrating the messages of the Expanse. They're just like, oh, people like the show. Well, you don't say.
I'm going to slightly disagree with that because Bezos was a fan of the books before the show started.
Well, I will point out, okay, so, and I talked about this in episode 279 of Sovryn Tech. I went into some pretty wild theories. And like, I think a part of me really feels like Bezos is taking over science fiction, or at least a lot of the serious science fiction that's out there. And I mean, with you know, slapping Philip K. Dick's name on things, you know, I mean, you can go down the list. If he's getting the Expanse, I mean, that's certainly the best science fiction out there right now. You've got the Culture series that he's making, even though, you know, Lord of the Rings is fantasy. That kind of, you know, that falls under similar auspices. You got a lot of different stuff coming out as far as that goes. It's not uninteresting that the Expanse is one of the book series also that has touched on universal basic income. Even though it's not so positive about it exactly. But I really feel like, because I love the Expanse. I love the show too. Like Jacob, you know, said, but then at the same time, you know, this company is doing so many other egregious things, you know, with their echoes and again, with facial recognition software that they're helping out with governments and all this other stuff. And I think, and like I said in episode 279, I feel it's very, like, I think science fiction is so, without science fiction, I don't think most people could really grasp what's going on today, the dramatic changes that are happening today, because science fiction uniquely allows us to at least anticipate or experience the future kind of before it hits. And you can see where this stuff can go, and you can, you know, and so if you take control of that genre, if you take control of that real mental tool, which I think science fiction is actually a mental tool. That's why people get so passionate about it, more so than perhaps other genres. If you take away that mental tool, I think you're going to end up with, you know, he's going to control the narrative of what technology does. And that should be terrifying. You know, I mean, the Expanse, I don't know that it's necessarily like that's going to be a thing, because that's a show where you got to stick pretty close to the books or people could get pissed off. But a lot of this other stuff where, you know, it's not entrenched already because another network started making it. I'm pretty worried about what he's going to parlay, what he's going to put on the screen as far as that goes. And I can't help but think that it's going to totally be used to the message of these shows, not just the popularity. The message of these shows is going to be used to forward whatever the fuck Bezos's agenda is, which I've certainly talked about endless amounts of times. So, I mean, that's kind of my feeling on that. It's so tough. I mean, and Amazon controls books, like, because books are so important to the human condition as we have it. And
maybe he's really trying to control the ideas and sci-fi.
He's going to,
Sci-fi,
well, I mean,
is a vehicle for controlling ideas.
Of course. What do you got, Rob?
It'd be really hard for doing that. I don't know how far you've gotten with the books, Brian, but I mean, like, the message gets pretty, you know, anti-authoritarian, anti-fascist, you know, the further it goes in. I mean, especially the last book was just, you know, I just don't know how they could push that message given, you know, what happens in that book.
Well, see that, but that's the thing, right? Is that, so, because I agree with you, and I'm caught up all the way.
Okay.
But so, I agree with you on that. And also, the Culture series is genuinely, it's anarchistic, like,
right, yeah,
by the numbers.
I'm wondering how this is going to work. What's going to happen with this Culture TV series now that they have the Expanse too? Because I think there is a degree of overlap there.
Yep, you know, I agree with you.
Is one going to play second fiddle to the other? Which I think this gives a service to both.
Sure. But, you know, yeah, absolutely. I don't know how that's going to end up working out, because Netflix is running into that problem where you have shows like Altered Carbon that are amazing, and then you have shows like Lost in Space that are shit. New Lost in Space. Old Lost in Space is phenomenal. But, you know, the thing is that while these things have an anti-authoritarian message, I mean, I think Bezos like I said, I've theorized that Bezos is he wants to implement UBI. He wants to implement some form of a post-scarcity society and all this shit. The thing is that while in his mind, and maybe in the abstract, you could say what he has in mind isn't malicious, that doesn't mean that it's the right. And that's the concern, is that his very basis could also be anti-authoritarian. But then at the same time that, the way that he's going to implement, or what he plans on implementing in an anti-authoritarian world that he's trying to get to, maybe past governments or something like that, I don't know, may not be the way for that to work, and so I don't know.
I mean, that's a positive light on it, but I mean, I honestly don't believe that about him, because I mean,
sure,
if that was true, he would treat his employees a whole lot better.
Well, very well said. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a huge subject. So let's see, we've got a couple other. Let's see. Jessica says, "Where do I sign to join this cult?" So we've already got the
nice.
ladies ready.
Sorry,
to
we got
get
2
in
members.
Yeah. Chris says, "I think it's in the fine print when you sign up to be a patron."
Yeah, totally buried in the fine print.
Yeah. So
no, if I were going to start a cult, I would be upfront about it. I would want people to basically bow down and start worshiping like immediately to prove their fealty.
That's right. Well,
I don't want to be suckering anybody into my cult. They have to be willingly giving themselves over to me.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a, well, I mean, I don't know how willing it is when you have to deal with your level of beauty and intelligence. I mean, like, that's kind of, that's getting into a whole other ballgame. So we got another comment here. Jessica says, when are you going to do a review of The Mana Machine? I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that book.
Ooh, so glad you asked.
Yeah, I will try to do this as soon as I can. The only thing is that June is going to be another, because of Porkfest, it's going to be another one of those months where it's just like nuts. And actually, I'm still finishing up writing the 2018 edition of the Dark Android book. And so like June's going to be kind of crazy, but I do want to get to reviewing that, releasing a full-on review of the book. The thing is, with the book reviews, like, I really want to bring, I mean, I always bring my A game, always bring my A+ game, but I particularly want to bring as much as I can. I want to like really, really make the book reviews something really solid. And, I'm not just showing up without notes and things like this. So those are kind of special.
Also,
just like
that book has a lot of pictures in it, doesn't it?
It does have a lot of pictures, but I can explain a lot of that. I mean, and in a very simple, abstract way, I could talk more about the Mana Machine, without needing to do like a big long episode about it. But that review will be coming. I also have to, there's like 4 books that I already have like notes for that I'm going to be doing reviews on. So Rob just said, oh yeah, Rob left the chat. No problem. Yeah, I think we heard Rob's dog, but that's okay.
His doggo needs him.
Yeah, dog's welcome. Anyway, thanks for coming on, Rob. I appreciate that. So we got a good 20 minutes yet. So if anyone else has other questions, feel free to get them in. If people want to find, I'll say this for now. If people want to find the Mana Machine, this is an incredibly rare book that I made available for free. I bought, I got the book and it was not cheap. I paid for it to get professionally scanned right down to OCR, the whole thing. I really, I made sure it was done right. And I got it compressed, and I paid for compression software to be able to do this. I'm not just using small PDF or something. And I uploaded it. You can go to books.zog.ninja, and that will take you right to where you can find. I've been releasing these books. Usually it's a couple a week. Sometimes a couple times I've missed some weeks, but I have like hundreds of books that I'm going to be releasing over time that will never get published. They're never going to get turned into ebooks in any way. A lot of them are completely out of print and antiquated, and just no one's going to give them the time of the day. But I think they're really precious, and I think they're really important. So I, took it upon myself, to make sure that these end up actually getting out there and that they're available for people to read. The Mana Machine is one of those, and you can find that. And actually, it kind of has a sister book to it called The Kabbalah Decoded, which I also want to review at the same time that I'm doing the Mana Machine, because both books they play off of each other nicely, same authors, same time frame, and everything. So if you want to find that, just go to books.zog.ninja, and you can find they're available to anybody. You don't just have to be a patron. And feel free, if you're a patron, feel free to share the links for those. You're more than, I just want these books out there and available for people to get their hands on. So Anyway, The Man Machine. You haven't read The Man Machine yet, right?
I haven't read it. I've just talked to you about it, and it sounds so fascinating.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you have a basic gist of it, A, because I've talked about it with you, and B, we both watch Ancient Aliens, which, by the way, is in season 13 right now.
Unbelievable. Lucky number 13. It's like they keep coming out with relatively new stuff. I mean,
yeah, I was impressed.
There's a lot of developments in the Ancient Aliens world.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the episodes that they've talked about, like there's one that was about Leonardo da Vinci's paintings, which is kind of interesting. They've had some other ones this year where, I don't know, they haven't been like the best episodes.
They haven't been the best episodes, no. I mean, one of them was about like the Majestic 12 and like secret government programs.
Right.
And I mean, they're not good. They're just really entertaining.
Yeah, I don't think
it's not like they're putting together grand theories that are backed by evidence. No, like it's so easy to debunk like almost everything that they're saying, but it's so entertaining and funny.
Yeah. I mean, but they, sometimes they bring up some interesting stuff. Like in their first couple seasons, they were really trying hard to like present this as, look, this is dead serious documentary stuff that we're bringing to you.
Yeah, okay? They really were.
I mean, they really were. But then, you just eventually run out of material. I mean, there's a lot of, mysteries of history, but there's only so many, and there sure as fuck isn't enough for 13 seasons of a documentary show. I gotta say, so I got maybe I mentioned this somewhere else already, but I ended up, La La Land Records came out with the soundtrack, which was done by Dennis McCarthy, who's the guy that scored a lot of Star Trek, including The Next Generation and all of that. The soundtrack is just fucking amazing, like for that series. And it's like 40 tracks. I mean, it's a huge CD, or, a large collection on the CD. That's what I mean by that. And like it's music you can listen to. It's like that nice background music that can get you into mental flow. I was really, really impressed with that soundtrack. Just fantastic. But yeah, so yeah, somehow Ancient Aliens is in season 13, and I don't know. I don't think the episodes are that great. Like I said, the first couple seasons are what you really need to see. Everything after that just really gets into much more crazier territory, particularly in the second season. If people do want to watch it, there is an episode that's about the Nazis. The whole episode's about the Nazis. And this is one of the flat out, in my opinion, it's one of the flat out best documentaries on the Nazis you could ever watch, because it talks about the things that other people don't want to talk about that the Nazis did, the occult side, which was totally legit, totally real. In fact, when I said this to Stephanie when we watched it years ago, I said, I was like, I hate this episode. I'm like, I love it, but I hate it. I hate it because I spent years learning all the stuff that this episode put into 45 minutes. And I'm like, man, I could have saved so much time in my life if this episode existed years previous, because it does such a phenomenal job of describing, talking about the Glocka, which is the bell, which is this, supposedly it's a vehicle, but that's shaped like a bell. And the arguments go, it's either a starship or, and look, it was whether it was a starship or not, or there's some people say it was a time ship. I'm not going to say that it was either of those things, but it existed. Like the Glocka was a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And you can find where it was docked and all that, like all that stuff is absolutely real. They break a lot of that down, and it's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, they
stuff.
talk about Werner von Braun a lot.
Yeah, everything that he did. I mean, he certainly had very strange things to say and do.
And contributed like so much to the modern space program in America.
Yeah. Speaking of that, a show that I think people should check out that I'll mention here is Strange Angel or Strange Angels. But
every time Brian says that, I'm like, Strangel.
Yeah.
Like,
but the show is on CBS All Access, and it's actually about the life. We don't know how accurate, or I don't know how accurate it's going to be, but it's about the life of Jack Parsons, who was one of the most important figures in the American rocketry program. I mean, this guy is, as much as Werner von Braun is part of the reason we got to the moon. I mean, he's the real deal. And the actress who played the nice thing about, and I mean, but the thing is, what's interesting about it is he was totally into the occult. Like Jack Parsons, I mean, he was having orgies, the whole thing, back in the day. He was friends with Aleister Crowley, who I'm a big fan of. He was like, well, he even got mixed in with L. Ron Hubbard and all that, which that's a whole other story. So JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratory. Yeah, that's what Rob said. And yeah, Jack Parsons is an interesting guy. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, if you read Sex and Rockets, which is the book by Robert Anton Wilson about Jack Parsons. I mean, it's
the fact that Robert Anton Wilson biographized him.
Yeah, I mean, you should just read everything by Robert Anton Wilson anyway. Like, I mean, that's just how you should go forward in life.
But apparently L. Ron Hubbard stole his wife.
Well, yeah. So I was telling you about this. Yeah, like he took $20,000 from L. Ron Hubbard took $20,000 from Jack Parsons because they became really close friends. This is before Scientology was the thing. Took $20,000 and his wife from the guy. Gave the $20,000 back eventually, but kept the wife.
Lesson: do not befriend L. Ron. Don't trust anybody with the first initial as their name.
Yeah, don't trust anybody whose first name is the Ron, because that's kind of the joke, is that L. Ron stood for the Ron.
Oh.
But anyway, I don't know. I don't know that that's what he meant. I think he went with Elron because it sounds like an alien, like Elron with like a dash. Imagine that there's a dash in the middle there. But regardless, I've heard so many stories about L. Ron Hubbard from actual like other contemporary science fiction authors of his. I've heard them firsthand. It's pretty amazing stuff, pretty crazy shit. But anyway, yeah, I don't believe he actually believed in Scientology at all. So where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So in this show, it's going to be on CBS All Access. I think it starts June 14th. I can't wait to watch it. I'm definitely going to be reviewing it. And I think the gal playing his wife, or at least the love interest in the show, it's the gal that played Olive Byrne in Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, which I think is just one of the best movies to come out in forever.
Cool. Yeah.
And so that's really cool to have her involved with that. Kind of interesting, too, because she's to actress for unconventional relationships or what? Because I had in Professor Marston does in this, taking part in some satanic rites that include, of course, sex magic and orgies.
Oh my!
Yeah. So, Man and Machine is one of the most interesting books I've ever read. I loved it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Jessica. Thank you for reading it. Thank you for taking advantage of the fact that I put it out there. Yeah, I think I agree. It's one of the, it's just a rare book. I mean, like there's it's such a wild, the basic idea is, for those that don't know, the basic premise of the Man and Machine. Okay. And this is such a unique idea that you can't not, like, your ears can't not perk up and go, wait, what? Like, and so much of it actually makes so much sense when compared to either the biblical texts or the Book of Zohar or, any of this other, a lot of Jewish mysticism. The basic idea is that when the Israelites were spending their 40 years in the desert, okay, after leaving Egypt, like all of the manna and everything that they were given, that they were provided, and that allowed them to survive this 40 years was actually coming from a machine, and some kind of advanced machine that literally made the manna and all that. I mean, that's the basic idea, but like some of the basic concepts that they bring up, and they go deeper too, but some of the basic concepts of, like, where did the Sabbath come from? Well, the Sabbath, and like, why did you get a double portion of manna on Saturday, but you didn't get any portion on the Sabbath? Mm-hmm. You say, well, on the Sabbath, you're not supposed to work. Actually, well, no, there was one group of people that was working. That'd be the Levites on the Sabbath, more or less. And the Sabbath, that Saturday, every 7 days, you had to clean the machine. Mm-hmm. And that's why you got the double portion on Fridays, because the other day you had to be cleaning the machine, and it didn't want the Israelites to starve.
And what was it? It was some kind of like algae that was growing in like some kind of reactor or something like that. Which
15 years after this book gets published, that's exactly the food that's getting devised for astronauts. Like back in the day, it was one of the foods that they were designing for potential space habitation. So that speaks very interestingly of that. I mean, and that happens a lot because the Man and Machine falls under kind of like these ancient astronaut theorist books, like Zachariah Sitchin's works or Eric von Daniken's works and things like this. But what's funny is a lot of those books, I mean, eventually what gets talked about and theorized in it either gets used for some part of the space program, or it ends up being proven true about space, and all this. And it's weird. Like it does make you wonder, about it. But the Man and Machine is, very unique book. And I have no trouble believing that that's exactly what went down, that they did have some kind of advanced machine, because they already, in my opinion, they already had very advanced medical knowledge. And we don't know where the hell that came from. And obviously somebody, if this Man and Machine is a real thing, somebody must have shown them how to use it. And maybe that same person gave them a lot of their other knowledge that they just passed down as Levitical law. So let's look at some of the other, we only got a few minutes left. So let's look at some of the other comments here in the YouTube chat. Jacob says, I almost always hear Elrond when people say Elrond or Elrond. Yeah, like the guy from Rivendell. Or yeah, he says it. I'm like, an elf from Rivendell was a fucking sci-fi writer and a cult leader. Elrond is played by Hugo Weaving, of course, if people remember the movie.
I thought it was a verb, like, or like an adverb, like Jack Parsons' wife. She got Elrond.
Yeah. Jacob goes on to say, this Mana Machine talk reminds me, really loved the speculative conversation you guys had about ancient advanced civilizations a couple weeks back. And thank you for that. I thought that was really interesting. And now I have no problem with, going full bore on that and talking about it. I didn't have a problem with it before, really. But now, since it's part of, you can say, no, actually, motherfuckers, you can't disprove, that advanced civilizations exist in the past. Well, might as well start talking about it and get theoretical and have fun with that. So, yeah, you and Ellen were awesome on that episode. That was really a lot of fun to have that conversation. Let's see. It says, was the Mana Machine, or let's see. I like that usage too, Stephanie. She got Elrond, LOL. Then Jacob says, was the Mana Machine leftover technology? Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is, I don't know if I brought it up on that episode where he had the conversation about ancient advanced civilizations. But, Isaac made it abundantly clear, and so did a lot of other Enlightenment figures who started off the scientific revolution in a very real sense, at least in the modern age. These guys thought that they were just rediscovering stuff, and they had good reason to believe that, because just like in, when you had the Florentine Renaissance, you had, Florence, literally Florence, Italy, became this wildly wealthy, part of the world. And, you end up with the Medici family and all this other stuff. And they were looking for, because they were separating themselves from the Catholic Church, they were really looking for a sense of history. They were looking for a sense of identity in the Florentine Renaissance. And there they are right in Italy, and they can't really find, they knew about the Roman Empire. And they're like, yeah, the Roman Empire was awesome. That was the way that these guys thought. And, we're talking like 12th, 13th century, okay, in Florence, Italy. Rome is just this wild place, and we know it existed, but they couldn't find anything of it because, Rome had been picked over by so many, quote unquote barbarians. I put that in quotes, barbarians and other groups and everything, that it just started selling everything off that was any kind of value. And they knew it existed, but they didn't know anything about it. Then a guy ends up traveling from the Byzantine Empire. A guy ends up traveling from the East, and he tells them, because the Byzantine Empire was just a continuation of the Roman Empire, he explains to these Florentine Renaissance figures, saying, well, this is what Rome was like. We know, because, we were just the offshoot of it and everything. And man, and it sets off this fire in Florence, when they rediscover all of this history that is right under their feet, but just that there's no signs for them to find of it being there. And so when you get to, fast forward 400 some odd years and you get into the Enlightenment and everything, the same attitude is happening. It's like, wait a minute. So like, we know, these people knew something, like our ancestors knew something. There was these incredible things, and you can't miss it, because you see the pyramids and you see all this other stuff, all these other monuments and everything. It's like, they must have known something, because we can't figure this out. So they must've figured something out. So you have a lot of these Enlightenment scientists who are thinking, what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to rediscover whatever the fuck they knew 2,000 years ago. That was their attitude, but maybe they weren't wrong. And maybe there's still things that, the idea of the Mana Machine being leftover technology, maybe there is shit from ago that started with the very heart of the scientific revolution, where we're still trying to figure that out. What the hell was it? What did we find? And
like the Antikythera device comes to mind.
Yeah, the Antikythera mechanism, absolutely. Like that's something we don't understand. The Phaistos disc. I mean, there's a lot of these different things, just within Greece, where we have no idea. Or even we also, kind of similar to how Florence didn't have an understanding of what ancient Rome was exactly like. We have the case of the Minoans, which you can interpret what we know of the Minoans in a few different ways. But the Minoans is such like this really unique culture that nothing else is quite like, at the time that they existed. But what did they know? Because there's especially culturally, because they have there's some cultural oddities within the Minoans. They were respected by the people of their day, okay, by the other cultures of their day, the other empires and whatever else. They're traders, one interpretation is that they had no army. In fact, they had like no violence. It was a peaceful fucking place, but it thrived on trade. It thrived on, mercantilism and, on merchants and everything. And then you have the women who are walking around in these, incredibly unique dresses that openly show their breasts. I mean, like there was no prudishness, didn't seem to be there. I mean, it's this mysterious culture that you can only kind of interpret what was going on there, but there's so many questions to ask about it. Where did they come from? Like, where did that oddity come from? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of things I think that we still have a lot to rediscover. And I think we're foolish to ever think, everything's a remix, right? I mean, I think that that's a fair statement, but we're foolish to ever think that, that we're really coming up with something new at any given moment. And yeah, I mean, and I guess to get to the point, is the man machine leftover technology? Maybe, sure. I mean, I'm totally open to that it was just something that was found, and maybe the Egyptians just were keeping it safe and they knew how to run it, and the Israelites took it with them, and said, well, we'll take this. I mean, because, this is a funny thing in history too. Like, okay, so if the exodus of the Israelites is a true story, right? Why did once they were gone, like it seemed like the Pharaoh was just like, please, Ramses is just like, get out of here. Just go. You're causing so much trouble. Get the fuck out of my town. You know what I mean? But then he goes chasing after them. Now in the Bible or in Torah, it says, well, the reason that he did, God hardened the Pharaoh's heart and the Pharaoh decided to go after him. Now, of course, if you're an atheist, that doesn't make any damn sense. But if you accept it as like some kind of historical thing, what happened there? Well, what happened there is the reason the Pharaoh went to chase after the Israelites after they left is the Israelites took everything with them. And maybe they took the manna machine with them. And then, I mean, like they took all the gold, they took all this other stuff. And they darted. And that's really kind of the only answer that could make sense. Or not the only, but it's one of the few answers that could make sense as to, wait, why did the Pharaoh go chase after them when he was glad that they finally fucking left? It's because maybe they took the manna machine. Maybe they took, who knows what other treasures, that they may have taken with them. And was it a treasure that could...
that on the air, because you said that to me privately before, and I thought that was a really interesting theory.
Well, you got to be careful with that, because that can sound like, I think to some people, that can sound anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
But of course, we're both Jainish, so it's fine. But no, I'm kidding.
He means Jewish. Yeah. And Jews can still say things that are anti-Semitic.
Of course
but
they can.
You don't mean it in that way.
No, I don't mean it at all.
You don't mean it as a stereotype that Jews are just like grubbing for gold or whatever. But like, you mean it as like, maybe this did happen in history and it would explain this thing about the Pharaoh better than God hardening his heart.
Took a device that parted the waters. Shit. And I mean, and maybe that was some kind of technology. I'm open to it. I'm not saying it's a fact. That's tough. History is here's, I've said this before, history is not a science. Okay. Like, because you really can't prove it unless you're there. You just can't. And even today you could say, because a lot of people say, well, but now is when history's really started because we're recording everything. It's all bullshit. Everything can be edited and you're not really, history only happens before your eyes. And that's all you can 100% count on. Everything else is kind of speculation and whatever else. That doesn't mean it's not a worthy field to get into. It's very important. You want to know the past. You want to understand the past. And you can get some degree of what you would call an autograph of information on what was going on. But yeah, anyway, a lot of it's interpretation and all that. Let's see. Rob says, sometime you should talk about the history of the occult in the 20th century. There's a lineage between Crowley, Parsons, and Elron in the Babylon working. So yes, I should talk about that. I love talking about that because I love talking about the occult, quite frankly.
Write that down.
Yeah, because I mean, my own opinion, I've shared this before. I think the occult is just science, and maybe it's parts of science that hasn't been. I think it's the same thing with alchemy. Alchemy, the occult, a lot of this stuff, anything that the church kind of like shunned for a long time, and even into the 20th century, I really just think is science or concepts that we don't exactly entirely understand yet that are effectively science and that we'll eventually get. Or it's just, well, here, I'll give you a little theory with Crowley and then we're going to wrap it up. We're over, it's past 5. So I think a lot of what Crowley did, like his tarot, a lot of this other stuff, I think a lot of it was made up. I think he was such a unique character. He was so anti-establishment. So, I mean, I know he worked with the establishment at certain points, but he was so unconventional, so rebellious just in his existence that I think he felt he had to create a fantasy world for him to for him to justify in his own head what he was doing compared to the rest of society. And so I think a lot of his work, I mean, some of it might have some interesting basis in, like I said, about the occult being science and things like this. But a lot of it, I really think, was just him creating. He was role playing. He was LARPing. You know, he was LARPing throughout the 20th century before LARPing was, well, I don't know if LARPing was ever cool, but I mean, but no, I don't have a problem with LARPing. That's great. But I think he was very much role playing, and he created his own little universe to live in his own ideas, and people bought into it and went with it. And I think that's happened at other times in the past. But I think he's one of those characters where it's absolutely true that's. I mean, he has some beautiful things to say. I mean, the key to joy is disobedience. You know, like that's one of the greatest poems ever. I mean, holy shit. You know, like yes. So anyway, I totally recommend checking out Crowley. But maybe I will talk about the occult in the 20th century at some point. So okay, why don't we get wrapping this up? Stephanie, what do you got? You got anything you want to share with the listeners? Anything you want to?
Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I think anything
like in response to what I just said.
It's all very interesting. I liked listening to you talk about it more than I have anything to say about it myself, because I'm not an expert in those areas. Sure. But I think that's one of those things, like, you folks got to understand, like, when Brian and I first got together, we spent so many nights staying up all night talking about the shit, talking about like the symbolism and the, like, what is the Illuminati and like all this occult stuff.
There's some late nights,
ancient history. And it was so cool. And we like bonded over it. And I still love it. I mean, I knew nothing about it when I first met Brian, but you know, it opened up so much discussion, and it was so interesting the way that he talked about it. And I think everybody else is interested too. So, yeah, I mean, I like to listen. I'm looking forward to doing a relationship rhombus.
Yeah, we're going to do it in the next few days.
My strength in talking about stuff is talking about relationships. And so if you get your relationship questions in, and I definitely want to do that kind of a show.
Yeah, you can email those to bbs@sovryntech.com, or you can message me on Patreon with those. And that show is going to be getting done in just a few days here.
Yeah. I will say this, the one thing you said about like a lot of the occult just being basically science, mm-hmm. I think there's something to that. I think there really is, because I've got this background. Oh God, this would probably take a long time, but I'm going to try to say it in quickly. Sure. I've got this background, I've got a PhD in biochemistry. I went to medical school for a couple of years. The more time I left, I didn't finish medical school. The more time goes on, the more I realize that like the stuff that I used to say was, oh, this is so woo-woo. This is so anti-science. I can't believe they're saying this. There is a lot of truth to it, in some ways more than like the whole mainstream Western medicine. I'm just increasingly distrustful of Western medicine, and even some things that pass off as science. Not everything, but like I still believe in the scientific method and everything. But there is this like, it is true that there's this like scientism of like, oh, well, no respectable person would question this idea, because right. It's science, it's proven by science, and right. So you can't question it. No, I mean, that's actually like a very anti-science kind of attitude. So yeah, like the way I think about science, I guess, has changed. And the way I think about definitely health and the body and wellness has evolved a lot over the last 5 years since I left medical school.
Sure.
And I think there's something to what you're saying about like a lot of occult has hidden knowledge in it.
Yeah,
that is real, and that there is something to it,
Yeah, absolutely. I could go on and on about that. And actually, at some point I'd love to hear you talk more about the whole criticisms of Western medicine and all that. But really, I think this just points at, you've got this, knowledge of, where Western medicine goes wrong, and things like this. And then I've got this occult knowledge. I mean, we could really build an amazing religion around you. I mean, like this cult is going to be something. It's going to be something special.
Yes.
We can put it all
have them
together.
Worshiping at my yoni.
That's right. I will be your chief scribe. I mean, it's going to be amazing. So anyway, let's see. Jacob says, for the first time I heard Brian, it was on FTL. Of course, that's Free Talk Live, talking about occult symbolism at the Super Bowl. Oh yeah. I can remember having that conversation.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we'll wrap this up.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, of course, lots of fun having you on for this.
Yeah. Thanks
maybe next time, if we're not, on location, and we're, we can actually be on camera and all that, we can have a lot of fun.
I would like to be on camera because I'm feeling a lot better about how I look. So
sure. Yeah. Oh man, your fitness regime as late has been phenomenal.
I think we are both looking really good, so I want to show off.
Yeah. Right on. So anyway, Thank you so much for everybody that attended. That was a great time. Thank you for the questions and for jumping on. Of course, thanks to Rob for coming on.
Thank you to everyone who signed up for my cult. I will be collecting your checks in just a few minutes here.
That's right. And of course, you can catch Rob and I. We will be doing the Star Wars update. Like I said, I think it'll be this Thursday, May 31st, that will finally get released. And that's going to be a hell of a time because we got a lot. Anytime there's a new Star Wars movie, we've got a lot to talk about. Among other things, we'll have other things to discuss as well. So anyway, we got some thank yous in the chat. So, all right, everybody, I will see all of you. Oh yeah, Relationship Rhombus with Stephanie and I coming out very soon. We will see. How about we? We will see all of you on the other side.